Star Wars Outlaws has been a real surprise to me. A Han Solo simulator, a smuggler simulator, a Star Wars fantasy that I haven't ever played before, and I've played all the Star Wars games available. Now, when this game first came out, one of the reasons I didn't even bother looking at it is because I heard it had forced stealth in 90% of the game. So I instantly read it off. Forced stealth is something I hate, even though I love stealth games. But after launch, something really interesting happened. And I heard that they started patching major aspects of the game, including removing 95% of all forced stealth missions. And I instantly got back on board after that. And after I heard there was a few more patches but didn't really hear what was going on in them, I thought, I'm going to let this game cook. I'm going to let them take player feedback, see what they come up with, and then I'm going to play the game. And I think it brings up a really interesting question about, with patching these days, can you do a No Man's Skies on a single player adventure game? But I have found myself living a Smugglers Fantasy in a Star Wars game that I've never experienced before. And I have been really enjoying several aspects of this game. We're going to start off with going to space.
All right, let's go.
Acknowledged.
One of the things I will say when it comes down to the aesthetic of the game is it is incredibly pretty. It has a feel that really does match Star Wars. Now, there is something about this game that actually does grind my gears a little bit, and that is the idea that it is fully open world and you can traverse from world to world to world with no loading screen, which is complete utter rubbish. You can go from world to world without a normal loading screen, but traversing from planet to space and traversing from planet to planet has loading screens that are just hidden. And I love that. I love the fact they're hidden, and I love the fact it's seamless loading from one area to another. But I do think it's very disingenuous for a developer and a publisher to turn around and say, hey, seamlessly open worlds where you can traverse from space to planet with no loading screen whatsoever. When actually, it's just a hidden loading screen. You don't move the ship, you don't fly around like No Man's Skies. It literally is a loading screen. It's just got animations and music and backgrounds and voice acting and all sorts attached to it. But I don't think that takes away from the visual aspect of this game. Like, flying around right now, it feels okay. It's not any Elite Dangerous, but it feels fine. The environments and worlds in space are interesting and very good looking. They do certainly feel like Star Wars. Everything from the firing of the lasers to the noises of TIE fighters to the engine to boosting, actually going into hyperspace themselves feels like Star Wars and looks like Star Wars. And I think when you make a Star Wars game, that is your number one thing to do. If you're going to put Star Wars on the box, it's got to nail that perspective. And it does. Oh, we're going to get into a bit of a fight here. Then everyone can sit there and watch my dreadful shooting. I don't think the actual flying itself is that good. Like I said, Elite Dangerous and other games do it 10 times better. Star Citizen, in fact, I would say does it better, which certainly says something. But I do think it's good enough to get you from place to place, to get you involved in the world. It doesn't feel as responsive as a space sim, I think, should. But it certainly feels good enough to... It certainly feels good enough to convey what it's trying to get across to the player about having a universe to explore a little bit and have missions to partake in and things to explore. The weakest element of this game is the space exploration, definitely. There's a few things to do in space. There's space stations that I have visited, but a lot of it is essentially just doing this, collecting a few resources, shooting a few boxes. So certainly don't come into this game thinking that it's this grand space adventure. From what I've experienced, it's certainly not. It is a tidbit attached to the game that is meant to make it feel more like Star Wars. I think the main thing with this game is it's all about living a fantasy of being inside the Star Wars universe. And I think if it didn't have this space element, it would be really lacking something. At the end of the day, you're talking about the biggest space IPs in existence. And if you miss out that space aspect of it, you're really going to be missing something from the feel of the game itself. So even though the space segment doesn't do anything profound to add to the game, it does make it feel more Star Wars. And I think that should be commended, even if it's not like a hallmark feature of the game. I've just entered Imperial space. We can actually see here there is a faction quest over in this station. So we're going to go over here and have a look and see what's over here. Initiate a bit of a landing sequence. I've never been here before, so there are some minor spoilers. So this is the ship. This is the Trailblazer. You can run around. There's different things in the ship here where you can modify your equipment and change the look of your equipment. This one's your blaster, which we'll get onto a little bit later. Sometimes there's a box here with equipment and rewards in. Your speeder is kept in the back here. Oh, the Imperials have stopped looking for me. Over here, we have the kitchen where you have your treats for your pet Nicks, as well as a wardrobe station. And all these things can also be accessed from the main menu as well. So it's not like you have to run around the ship, but you can if you want. You can immerse yourself in the experience a little bit more if that's what you want. So the other thing we have in the ship is we have access to a broker terminal where we can manage our contracts. It's quite nice that you have access to this because it means you don't have to travel from planet to planet to planet just to get the side missions. Because essentially that's what these broker missions are. They're just side missions. But they are named so they match the thematic theme of the game itself. And I love that. I love the fact that multiple aspects of this game are all about smuggling and being a smuggler, being part of that criminal underbelly. And I think that's one of the things that makes this game feel really, really good, is that everything you're doing flows into that aspect of being this part of this criminal underbelly. And that's one of the reasons I'm having so much fun with it. So as well as being able to access your ship and run around your ship, you also have access to upgrade your ship. You also have access to upgrade your speeder as well. You have access to customize the appearance of them in specific ways. You can go and find and unlock new skins for them. We've got some trails here. I really like the red ones, but we can change to the blue, as well as a couple of charms as well, just for in the cockpit. A bit like the dice in the Millennium Falcon. And it adds and makes the equipment in the game feel a little bit more like yours. And I quite like that. Also, you have a number of upgrades you can do here by collecting resources around the game. So I love upgrades. I love being able to find aspects that improve the equipment that you have in the game. We can go and visit the ship mechanic right here. We can have a look at upgrading something. Now, one of the things, because I'm absolutely trash at flying, I really want to upgrade is actually the deflector shields. So we're going to go in here. We're going to spend a little bit of money on some of the equipment we've found. Oh, we can fully upgrade it. Fantastic. And we're going to fully upgrade our deflector shields from there. Now, as well as your ship and your speeder, you can also upgrade some of the equipment you've got. So the main part is your blaster. And right here, it's the same thing with the looks. You can have a number of skins that I've been finding throughout the game where you can actually go in and make it feel a little bit more like yours. And you can also go in here and upgrade several parts of your blaster. So they've added these modules to make the weapon feel a bit more jack of all trades. You can't carry around a sniper rifle or a battle rifle or anything like that permanently, but you do have this pistol with a number of different abilities that allow it to fulfill some of those roles. So you can see here, I've got a light module configured right now. I could have a rapid module that gives it sort of like a rapid fire mode, but I quite like the accuracy of the light configuration. I've got improved accuracy and supercooling on it. And then my next upgrade is a damage. I need to find components throughout the world to actually be able to upgrade it as well. We've also got an iron module here. And these modules aren't just for combat either. They are for unlocking things around the world. The iron module reacts with certain power conduits then you can find to open doors, to find treasure and things like this. And then the power module does a similar thing. I've only just unlocked this. You can blast open specific walls, and that will once again help you find more treasure as you go throughout the game. And treasure can be anything from stuff to sell, to resources, to more modules, to more items that help you upgrade your ships, your speeders, but also the kit you have in this game as well. One of my favorite things about this game is actually the abilities system. The ability system is quite unique. Now, in my head, you have 3 types of leveling up systems in video games these days. You have the ability to gain experience, gain levels, and then pick what you want to unlock. You have this experience systems where you go and you use a bow, and you constantly use a bow, and that unlocks more and more features for the bow. You improve with the bow. And then you also have an unlock system where doing things unlocks things. If you want a new scope for your weapon, you get 10 headshots and you unlock a new scope. And Outlaws goes down the unlock route where completing small objectives unlocks abilities for you and new perks and new pathways, and I love that. I love the fact that the abilities in this game are roped together with the act of completing small little objectives. I think it's a really unique way, and it fits, again, it fits thematically inside this Star Wars smuggling universe that they have created. So abilities are all broken down into experts. And you start off with the bartender, Bram the bartender. And Bram gives you a number of different options and cards. From lockpicking, fast talking, or armor undershirt. Some of them are very basic, and some of them are a little bit more advanced. But the idea is you complete objectives to unlock these upgrades, these abilities. So one of the things you have to do is you have to first find the expert for them to teach you new abilities and get new upgrades. And I love that. I love the idea of you being a greenhorn in the smuggling underbelly of the world. And to gain the knowledge you need to succeed in this world, you actually have to go and find the experts with the knowledge, and they have to teach you the tools and techniques you need to then progress forward. I love that idea. So we found a slicer on a planet. We built up our trust with the slicer. It was quite quick, but it was thematic and engaging. And then we had access to her ability set for the slicer, and it was all around hacking and stuff like this. So we got a new slicer kit. This slicer kit then expanded out the hacking in the game quite dramatically, which was great. And as well as a few other things like Sneak Trap, where our little pet Nyx can now set traps on alarm panels so that it stuns and knocks out enemies if they go to trigger an alarm. And it's things like that as you make your way through the game, completing these small objectives, they could either be collecting components, like unlocking this concussive smoke. It actually requires components from around the world, or it could be completing tasks, or it could be doing things in the game in a specific way. For instance, this sneak shot, which increases my damage, I need to blast down distracted enemies. So I've got to use Nyx, my little pet, to distract an enemy, and then I've got to shoot him in the back of the head. And then if I do that 5 times, I will then unlock Sneak Shot. For the mechanic, we've actually got one here called Treasure Hunter, which allows Nyx to provide more information about the world around them. You'll be able to spot canisters and containers more easily with this ability. And I've unlocked this. I have found 10 containers. I have found 4 different ways to make Nyx happy. And I've used Nyx to fetch an item. And now I've completed all those things. It's now letting me unlock this new ability for Nyx. And all the abilities in the game are unlocked in this way. And I love it. I really think it adds a lot to the game itself, where it's not just about leveling up and then picking random things on a tree. It's about actually engaging with the characters of the world. It's about engaging with the world itself in specific ways to then progress your character forward. I don't think many games have done it like this. Honestly, it's something I'm looking out for in the future, for more games to take this idea and really expand on it. It's one of those things where unlocking adds to that narrative and thematic aspect of being a smuggler and being new to smuggling and learning the ropes and having experts throughout the game teach you the tricks of the trade to really progress your story And then as you go through the game, you then use these tools, you use these equipments and your ship and your speeder to then progress through and complete missions. And completing missions then goes into a reputation system where access specific areas, people's attitudes towards you, rewards for things are all affected by this reputation system. And I think the reputation system is really the cornerstone of this game. To the point where someone might ask you to plant a camera in a location, and if you have a good reputation with the people that own that area, that mission can become infinitely more easy, where you can just walk in because they trust you. You got a good rep with them. They'll let you just walk in and do your thing, and they're not too bothered about it. Where if you have a bad reputation with them, they're not going to let you into their area, and they're going to be a little bit more wary about what the hell you're doing there.
Crimson Dawn has more than enough credits.
Well, what we're going to do here, we're going to take the bribe. Now, we actually do need some more rep with the Pike Syndicate. And this is an idea of the game sometimes gives you opportunity to really like do a 90-degree turn and go in a different direction here. But because we need the rep, we're actually going to side with Gorax. And I'm kind of interested to see what happens when Gorax gets his hands on this guy.
So, start walking.
Help! She's got a blaster!
Oh, dear. Oh, well, here's a good time to show you some combat. So right now, because we've got our weapon here, we've upgraded it a few times. Right now, we have the opportunity to ask our little pal to go and distract the guy. And we can go in, get some attacks on, shoot that guy in the head. Oh, he went flying.
We did it, Nix.
There we go. So yeah, that was me using the bit of melee there and a heavy shot from this weapon. The difficulty I'm certainly playing on, you can die pretty quick if you take a few blaster hits. But you can see here we can swap between the normal shot, the iron shot is good for taking out robots, and this is the heavy shot as well. The game is very pretty. The models are really, really great. The actual voice acting itself is phenomenal. But I think one of the areas it's really, really let down is the lip syncing. The lip syncing in places absolutely sucks, and in others is just fine. And that's a little bit sad. It really does take me out of conversations sometimes, even though the voice acting is absolutely top notch. And the stories that you play out are relatively engaging. I do like Kay as a character, and I like this journey she's going on. But the actual lip syncing itself is so rough in places that it takes me out of conversations. Relatively frequently, if I'm honest. I would really, if they're going to carry on updating this game to make it the best it can be, I would really like them to improve or try and improve the lip syncing in some way. I think that's a relatively big ask, and I don't think they're going to do it, and I understand why they wouldn't do it. But it is one of those things where it's like, oh, you got your voice acting down, and the graphics actually are fantastic. Oh, we're getting attacked here. It's a good thing I got those shield upgrades. But I think that's what I would like to see from Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft next time around, is a real improvement to the voice acting. Part of telling a story in a video game is the voice acting, is the engagement in these conversations. And if you're struggling to link the characters' voices to the actual models themselves, it can be a little bit like listening to subtitles, and that can take you out of the actual storytelling itself. Let's finish this last guy off. And then we can drop off this slime ball.
Hey, 95. You ever been or not?
Well, let's go down to the planet, and I'll show you what the planetary environments look like and stuff like this. I'll show you a little bit more about the actual reputation system and some of the things that the reputation system can affect. Again, these loading screens, because that's what they are, look fantastic, and they do add to that aspect of feeling like you're really traversing a universe. Right, so what we're going to do here, we're going to go find Gorak, who's the head of the Pike Syndicate, and we're going to talk to him and hand over our prize. And it fulfills that a little bit of that bounty hunter sort of feel of the game, but it is definitely not a primary aspect. I will say, from a feel of the game, even though these places look fantastic and they feel very Underbelly and they feel very Star Wars, you're not a bounty hunter. You don't have a massive arsenal of weapons. You're not Jango Fett. You're not Boba Fett. You're not the Mandalorian. And the game certainly doesn't give you the tools to act like you are. So if you're looking for more of a bounty hunter, criminal, underworld fantasy from this game, it's not going to give you that. It's definitely sort of a Han Solo smuggler fantasy rather than a bounty hunter fantasy. You can see here some of the lip syncing issues I was talking about.
I assume you took care of my problem?
Sure did. I tracked down Tizlak. He's on my ship.
Good. I will send someone to collect him. You have done well, Kay Vess.
So all we can see here is now that we've increased our reputation with the Pike Syndicate, but our reputation with Crimson Dawn has decreased. We've lost some benefits from Crimson Dawn.
Crimson Dawn probably won't just let this go, huh?
No. Tizlak seemed valuable to them.
Huh, great.
I have seen at some points where I've done missions for other people, like for the Pike Syndicate, go into the Crimson Dawn faction area, place a camera down, I talked about earlier, and because I wasn't spotted, it increased my rep with the Pike Syndicate, but didn't affect my reputation with Crimson Dawn. Now, that could have been mission specific thing. It's happened a few times where it hasn't affected my reputation with that faction, but I don't know if it's just a mission specific thing or it's a game specific thing where I'm being rewarded for not getting spotted. And I do hope it is the fact that I'm being rewarded for not being spotted, because I would love that aspect of it. Now we've increased our reputation with the Pikes, we can actually go into the Pike area. I've mentioned a few times now about living a fantasy or playing out a fantasy of being a smuggler in the Star Wars fantasy, and that this game really leans into it. And a few other ways it does that is by giving you access to lots of little mini bits of side content. And it's just little things like being able to bet on horse racing, being able to play sabbat games, being able to cheat in those sabbat games with your Nix, your little pet. And it's things like that really add to this thematic storytelling of being a criminal in the underworld of Star Wars. Oh, we now got access to the Pike Syndicate's trader, so let's see what he's got. Oh, we got direct energy circuits. Some of these we don't need too much of. These are cheap. Faction stock, ship computer. I'll have one of these. That was expensive. Sell some of our bits to him, make some of our money back. One of the things you can do is if you've got good reputation with a faction, you get discounts. So it's good to wait until you're pretty high rep with them before you sell. And if you want to increase your rep a little bit more, you can hand over some syndicate data that you found throughout the world. You might have found it by stealing off enemies. Like for instance here, we can use Nix to steal something off this guy. It might be a key to a door. It might be a bit of money. It could be a grenade, for instance. Thanks, Nix. That's one of the really great things about Nix, is Nix feels more like a partner than just a pet in this game. The level of control you have over him when you're controlling Nix here with my Q button, the level of control I have with him is very detailed compared to most other games of pets and companions in them. Normally it's just go here, do that. But with Nix, because you can hold the Q button, really position what Nix is doing, the tool set that Nix has is quite extensive. It could be anything from opening a door to distracting enemies to attacking enemies to powering on a circuit to let you into a place. There's lots of things Nix can do. And as I'm playing through the game and unlocking abilities, Nix's tool set is also expanding. There is a piece of food that I got Nix that allows Nix to be able to kick grenades away from me if one lands near me in combat. And we came across this completely by accident. It was a case of finding randomly a food vendor, and I sat down and did a little mini game completely out of nowhere, and then I actually got access to the food from that mini game. And that then links into Nix, where you are able to attach food to Nix, and the food then expands Nix's abilities to do things. If it's kick a grenade away from Kay, or distract multiple enemies, but the distraction range is reduced. So you can really tailor Nyx to fit your playstyle. If you're more combat focused and you like getting into a bit of a scrap, then you can maybe have Nyx kick grenades away. But if you are like me and you're a little bit more stealthy, you can expand Nyx's toolset when it comes down to distracting enemies. And that's something that I just came across in the game randomly, again, adding to that thematic storytelling of living in this Star Wars world. Let's grab my speeder here. One of the things with the speeder is, with the speeder, with Nyx, with anything that sort of just comes to you, it does feel like the game just spawns it in behind you, or just off the side of the screen like that you just saw. And go for a ride here. Absolutely gorgeous scenery here. The speeder itself is really nice to drive. It feels quick. It feels like a Star Wars speeder, and less of a floating car, more of an actual Star Wars speeder with its animations and the way it looks as it travels across the world. Also, as we've unlocked the ability to upgrade the speeder as well, we've unlocked things like a jump and the ability to have a speed boost as well. So these things are all really nice. When you're in a chase sequence, if, I don't know, you've miffed off the Imperials, or you've entered an area of that you don't have high enough rep to be allowed into it, because on the map there are areas that are controlled by the Galactic Empire, by Crimson Dawn, by the Pike Syndicate. And if you don't have good enough rep to be in those areas and you go in there, they are going to start attacking you. One of the issues I have is you can't shoot like you could in a Grand Theft Auto, for instance. It's very restricted. You have to either run away or wait until your adrenaline fills up and use your ability to do a quick shot, which if we get into combat later, we'll show you. But the speeder itself, apart from the spawning in, the controlling of the speeder is, it understeers a lot. I don't know if that's just because my speeder is not fully upgraded, but it seems to understeer a lot. But that could also be down to the fact that I haven't upgraded my speeder yet. It's not the best controlling vehicle in a game I've ever played. So the cornerstone of the game is really built on this reputation system. It allows you to have access to more merchants. It allows you access to more equipment, to access areas around the map, to take on new types of jobs. So that then leads into expanding your equipment and your vehicles and upgrading your tool sets. And it fits in thematically to the way the game's laid out and the actual world and the storytelling as well, where interacting with these crime bosses is a major part of the story, and having them also be a major gameplay mechanic really links together the game, the story, and your actions. And it's something I don't think not enough games do. Your actions really add to what's going on in the universe. If I severely pissed off the Pike Syndicate, there should be a repercussion to that. And this game gives me that, where future story missions and future side content might become increasingly harder because I've chosen to really side with Crimson Dawn and piss off the Pike Syndicate. So on the map, you can see these areas of control. The Empire itself are like a static faction. They're always going to be pissed off you in some way because they're the Empire for one, but also you are a criminal at the end of the day. There are these events that happen around the world where over the radio you'll hear that the Empire might have found something, and there might be like a fight that breaks out. The actual events themselves are not timed or anything like that. They come and go, they repeat themselves, and not honestly that interesting, but it's nice that they're there. One of the things I will say is the actual world itself feels a lot more alive than a few games I've seen. Like right here, we can come across just a bunch of fighting. Let's join in. What have we got here? I don't even know what this fight is about. So we've got homesteaders. Let's save the homesteaders. This is where we can show some combat here. Switch over to the light gun. Pop some heads. Also, the actual combat itself feels pretty good. even if your kit is limited to your pistol and whatever else you can pick up, its combat feels good. The shooting feels good. The sound design of the weapons feels very Star Wars. I think I would have liked to have more weapon variety for Kay herself instead of just picking up what might have dropped on the floor. But at the same time, for that, it is kind of out of the scope of this game, I feel, as it's more smuggler based and not bounty hunter based. It's less combat driven and more about being smart with the tools you've got, like Han Solo. Oh, he's giving me some money. But it's events like this that make the world feel a lot more alive. You see merchants around. You see these events pop up. You see these random encounters like the one we just interacted with here. Let's call my speeder. And it does lead to the world feeling a lot more active and alive than some other titles in recent memory from Ubisoft, like Avatar. As much as I enjoyed Avatar for allowing me to fulfill the fantasy of living in the Avatar universe, the actual game world itself was incredibly bland and empty. Not a lot happened. It felt very static and stale, even though it was beautiful. Where Outlaws takes it definitely a step further, where it doesn't feel stale. It constantly feels like something's happening. There's things to do in it. There's lots to explore. The actual map system itself is really, really nice as well. As if we zoom in a little bit here, we can see that it's highlighted things, treasure I have found on the map. So even though it does give you the ability to place markers wherever you want, in the same vein and style as a Breath of the Wild, I haven't felt myself actually needing it. The map does a very good job of marking stuff itself and letting you know if you have completed it or not. So one of the better map systems I've seen. Instead of having this scroll out bar where you go from galactic view to planetary view or space view to planetary view, I would rather this be a UI element you can click or a button prompt where you can press, because quite often what I'll do is I'll zoom out, and as I've explored the whole map, it'll just zoom all the way out of the planet. And I don't want to zoom out all the way of the planet. What I wanted to have a look at is the whole map itself here. So a few times I have found myself zooming out into the orbit view. And there's a few little niggly things like that throughout the whole of the UI. It's not perfect, but it is pretty good. I would say Ubisoft are known for not having good UI, and this is probably on the better side of the UI that I've seen from a Ubisoft development team. I think because the game was designed initially with a stealth focus, the AI in combat is really dumb. It is really dumb. I have cleared out whole bases, and there's been like a couple of guys I've left alive who have been like, "What's that?" and just sat in a corner and not done anything. I have launched grenades, had grenade launchers firing at me, explosions going left, right, and center, and then after all said and done, I have sprinted around the base, picking up treasure and collecting items, and the AI is sat in a corner just going, "What's that?" and not doing anything. And so that does sort of take you out of your fantasy that you're invested in. The other thing is, I have taken this base out before, and everyone has seemed to have respawned. Not a massive fan of that, if I'm honest. I'd rather be able to come back to these locations and them be as I left them. We use our taser here to take this guy out. And then we can take this guy out. The audio design of the game, when it comes down to blaster fire, engines, TIE fighters going overhead, is extremely Star Wars and fits the game extremely well. Let's blow this wall up here. One other thing that really lacks massively is the melee combat audio design is not good. Oh my goodness, it's a droid factory. Yeah, it's not good whatsoever. It doesn't sound like you're hitting... Oh, speeder paint job. It doesn't sound like you're hitting another another person, it sounds like you are slapping a wet fish. Like, it doesn't sound like good at all. Tell you what we're going to do here is we're going to see if we can show you some of the adrenaline stuff. We get into a bit of combat. There we go. Right, we got our adrenaline ability here. So what we can do is we can go out here. We can press X, mark these guys, and then do a little bit of an animation to take out a few guys. Now, that ability there is the only thing you can do on the back of a speeder. You can't actually shoot your own weapon. You can only do that adrenaline ability. But for a game that was never designed to have a major combat focus, I think they've done a really good job adding and implementing some bits in here that make the combat feel good and usable. The reload system in the game is almost identical to a Gears of War, and I absolutely love that system. Making reloading just that little bit more engaging to me feels fantastic, and I think it fits in this game very, very well with the idea of cooling a laser weapon down. So they've done a really good job with that. The weapons feel nice and precise, and I don't feel like... Oh, he's got a grenade launcher. You can see you can pick up other weapons here and use them, and they can be very effective, but they're definitely not... It's not a case of you being a bounty hunter and collecting an arsenal of weapons. It's about being a smuggler and picking up and using tools that are available to you at any given time, be it a weapon on the floor, a grenade in your pocket, or getting nicks to explode a barrel that is on the edge of combat. Again, living out that thematic fantasy of being a Star Wars smuggler, right? What's the paint we just got for the speeder? Oh, I kind of like that. Go faster stripes. And that's the kind of treasures you can pick up from around the map as well by exploring. It be it resource upgrade materials or even information to find more things throughout the world. Quite often you'll go to a shop and you'll see that their merchants and smugglers are selling information or intel for around the world. I think one of the things to say as well is the fact that all this is just on one planet. You can see that punch there just sounded a little bit like a wet fish. I think what we'll do here is we'll try and finish this this little side mission. And we'll try and do it in a little bit more of a stealthy way to show you that a lot of this game is very open-ended. It does a pretty good job of letting you pick and choose how to complete missions, be it stealthy or going guns blazing or a little bit of both. Be it have good reputation with a specific area and just walk in, or have to sneak in because you've really pissed off the huts. Go over here. We'll use Nyx to attack this guy. We'll get this guy. And then we'll finish off the one Nyx is attacking. Yeah, the level design and the world design really solidify this aspect of the game, which is, hey, you can walk through the front door. You can put a grenade at the guard's feet. You can blow them up. You can walk through the front door. Or you can be a little bit more sneaky, a little bit more stealthy, and you can focus on that aspect of the game. And then you can also acquire gear and abilities and tools that reinforce that level of gameplay that you want to do. Do you need Nyx to kick grenades away because you're getting into a lot of fights? Or do you need Nyx to be able to distract more than one person at a time because you're sneaking and skulking around? And that's the main thing for me, is I've been able to really play out a fantasy of being a Star Wars smuggler that no other game has been able to do for me. And I think that's why I've been able to overlook some of the shortcomings of this game. Very early on in the game, it's established that Kay is very new to this. She is not a Han Solo or a Greedo. She doesn't have years and years and years of experience. Even though this is the life she wants to live, there are aspects of it that she's not very good at. One of those aspects is actually flying a spaceship. It is established in the first hour of the game that Kay cannot fly a spaceship. And the way she gets around it is accidentally flying and crashing. After that point, Kay is never given training. The expert system for your abilities is never used to introduce you to a pilot. Kay still goes on from being a complete pilot novice to an expert fighter pilot in 30 seconds flat. And even though a lot of the game does a very good job of establishing Kay is good with a gun, Kay is good at slicing, there are parts of the game that really fall short. And the flying aspect is the most grievous example of this, where it's never established that Kay learns to fly. She just goes from accidentally engaging hyperspace and then crashes the ship into a planet. And then the next time she flies the ship, she gets into dogfights and murders pirates. And it is a massive distraction for me in the believability of this world I'm in. You've given me a playground, a story and a playground to fulfill this fantasy of being a smuggler. And Kay is a great character to take me on that journey. But there are aspects of the game, specifically the flying, where you rip me out of that fantasy because you have established very early on that Kay can't fly a spaceship. But then you set me on dogfighting missions. And it's little things that are overlooked that can honestly ruin a beginning experience for someone. I've overlooked it, but I'm not particularly happy with it. Every time I get into a spaceship and I fly around with this character, I have to subdue a level of believability to what the character is actually doing in the spaceship. She has still not had any training. And when a large portion of the game's story and systems are based around narratively talking about and explaining how Kay is a novice criminal and you have to seek out experts to teach you the tricks of the trade and get you to really navigate the story in a believable way. And then you're given a spaceship that Kay should not be able to fly. And to me, it's a big misstep because it's quite easily fixed. On the first planet in the story, you're asked to find a mechanic to upgrade your speeder. Now, in my opinion, what they should have done is replace this mechanic with a pilot, and the story should have been linked to a little bit of flight training, so that when you start going into space, when you start traveling to other planets, when you start engaging the hyperdrive, that aspect of the game becomes a lot more believable. And it's a real misstep from Massive Entertainment Ubisoft here for me in this world that they have cultivated, because they've done a fantastic job with 80% of it, but that misstep on that 20% of it really stops me from being able to fly around the universe as a Star Wars character in an engaging manner 100% of the time. I'm just stuck with it 80% of the time. All in all, the story is pretty good. I've loved the characters we've met along the way so far. I am engaged. I really like Kay as a character. I think the voice acting from the whole cast really helps solidify my like for these characters. There's been a few plot twists here and there that have honestly shocked me a little bit. I didn't see a few coming. I definitely want to know where this game is going. Not necessarily because the plot is this tangle of intrigue and interest, but more because I want to see Kay fulfill her journey and see where it goes. All in all, I think that Star Wars Outlaws is a really, really good game. If you want to fulfill a Star Wars Han Solo fantasy, then I think Kay as a character you could really get behind, and you could really find a playground to fulfill that internal narrative for yourself. If you're not into Star Wars, I think this game is still a very good game. I think the reputation system, the stealth elements, the combat all rope themselves in nicely to still be a good game, an engaging experience. But you are definitely not going to fall in love the way I have. There is something about being chased by 10 Imperial troopers on speeder bikes while you hear a sound of a TIE fighter going overhead and you think to yourself, oh shit, have I fucking pissed them off this time to such a degree that they've now got TIE fighters on me. I've really enjoyed exploring this world, finding new things the game never told me about, finding systems, having systems interact with each other really nicely and naturally. I think once again, Massive Entertainment have outdone themselves a little bit here, but I don't know how much of that was based on the feedback after the launch of the game, because I never played this game on launch. I've only played the quote unquote fixed version of it. Sadly though, there is one thing that I think needs to be said before we end this video, and that is Ubisoft. Once again, Ubisoft have put out a pretty good product. Ubisoft's had a really hard few years. They have missed the mark on so many opportunities that I think it's quite obvious to a lot of people that they are struggling. And one of the things I noticed the second I came into this game was that this single player adventure game has a store attached to it. It has cosmetics attached to it. And it just irritates the hell out of me that I don't mind you putting out a season pass and attaching story content to it, additional story content to it. I think that's fine. I think the Star Wars universe is also a great place to expand stories. The cosmetic side of things fills me with this idea that I have bought a product and I now have to spend more money to look the way I want to look. In the store here, we have armor sets that allude to Boba Fett. We have armor sets that allude to the episode 6 of Star Wars' camo outfits. And if you want to look like that, screw you. You have to cough up more money. And once you've paid for a product, I feel like you should have access to that product. And that cosmetics don't belong in a single player game. And it's irritating to see a store in the main menu of my single player game. All in all, I think I've pretty much summed up how I feel about Star Wars Outlaws. I'm going to continue playing it. I want to finish it. So if you ever like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. Send it to your friends. Comment down in the description below what you think about Star Wars Outlaws. Have you played it? Has this video convinced you to actually pick it up from its iffy launch? And do you think developers having the ability to patch games after launch, do you think it's a good thing? Do you think the benefits outweigh the negatives? Because I think it's a really interesting conversation to have. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you next time.